Hello, my name is Eli Miller. I'm a developer at Atorus Research, and today I want to show how we have been able to close a lot of the gaps that prevent us from using tables generated from R in a clinical study report. Most TLFs in a clinical report use RTF. And say what you will about RTF, it's a stable, tried and tested format that hasn't changed for years. There are many R packages that output to RTF, but crucially, there's not a lot of control for formatting. There's no control over footnotes and titles, no ability to add page numbers to your document, not a lot of control over how the pagination works, and a lot of other small things that a reviewer would expect when they're reviewing a TLF. pharmaRTF steps in where these other packages leave off. Currently, we support Huxtable tables, and we have plans to support GT in the near future, and we will support any other R packages when they become mature in their RTF support. One other thing I'd like to point out is that pharmaRTF is qualified. There is a UAT process for our R packages that we are starting to build out. pharmaRTF was tested and documented by someone who is independent of the development of pharmaRTF. That qualification document is available at the pharmaRTF GitHub repository and is open source for anyone to view. And before we get into the details, I'd like to show a quick example of the output of pharmaRTF. So this probably looks very familiar. This could be any TLF you could see in a clinical study report, but it was created and output completely from R. You can see we have titles and footnotes down here with important study metadata. And we also have column headers, and these things will repeat across pages in your RTF document. And we also have support for page numbers, the date, and the source of the program. And these are all really important things you would need if you want to integrate R into your TLF workflow. So let's take a quick test drive with Tplyr and pharmaRTF. Here we're creating a table you might see in a clinical report. It's just a end of study summary. So here we have the completed and discontinued, and then completed and discontinued by event. So Tplyr is doing a lot of cool stuff in the background, and we also have a booth at pharmaR for Tplyr, and I would really encourage you to check that out. So once we get this output from Tplyr, this is most of what we need, we pass it right into Huxtable. And here Huxtable is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. You can see we are setting bold and the alignment of our top row. That's going to be our column header. And then we pass our Huxtable into pharmaRTF. Huxtable is actually doing most of the work with the table styling, but there are a lot of parameters you can pass into pharmaRTF to override or change how that actually comes out in the final RTF document. So let's just walk through what we're doing in our RTF here. So we're creating the RTF document, and first we're adding a couple titles here. So we have the Atorus test drive. We're going to center that, make it bold and font size 30, and an end of study status table created with Tplyr, Huxtable, and pharmaRTF. That's going to be a split alignment, italic, and 14 size font. Here we're adding a footnote with the page format and the date format, and again that's going to be split. Here we're ignoring the cell padding. So pharmaRTF is an interface for your RTF and your table level package. So there are certain functions that we have that interface directly with the Huxtable package to make it appear how you would like. Here we're just making the table appear more compact and not having the cells in the table actually pad themselves. And here again we're interfacing with Huxtable here. So between our column header and the table and the title that we have added, we're going to add a row between both. So that just separates the column headers for the design of the table. And here we're going to set the table level default as 10. You can actually do this with Huxtable as well, but pharmaRTF can override that if you have a need to, and if you want that to be your workflow. And finally, we're writing our RTF document. So over here on the left, you can actually see how this looks. And this is something you could see in a clinical study report now. There is, a lot more we could do with this for sure. There's really not a lot that we can't do when we combine pharmaRTF and Huxtable, including, making sure all of our decimal points line up, making sure all of our numbers are lining up, making sure our alignments are all correct. And so let's go see another example of how we can tie a bit more of this together. And in this example, again, Tplyr is used to create the table itself. And I'm going to point out something that Tplyr is doing that's actually pretty cool. Here we are changing the ADSL dataset, and we are recoding the sex variable, and we're adding a couple extra factors to the race variable. Now, some of these values didn't actually appear in the ADSL, but Tplyr can take in these factors and it will have these values appear in the table even if they don't actually appear in the data. So it can be really useful if you're trying to mock up your display and you don't actually have your data yet. And looking at this table, it looks like it's a little bit more of a complex table than we had above. We're summarizing the sex variable, the age group, race, and ethnicity variables. And again, in the background, Tplyr is doing a lot of really cool stuff to come up with this data frame for us. And we can pass this data frame straight into Huxtable. And Huxtable is doing the same things here that it was doing in our first example. But we've added a couple extra things to the pharmaRTF calls. We've set the font size a little smaller, and we've made the page a little shorter. So this is just to demonstrate what it would look like when we have multiple pages. And if we look over on the left here, you can see we have the Atorus test drive. Same thing up here. But you can see the titles and the column headers are repeating across pages, and so are the footers here. So this can be really helpful if you actually have a full table that you're printing out from R directly into your clinical report. And if you are interested in this, you can see the pharmaRTF references. There are a lot of really cool examples there you can check out. And you can also check out the Atorus CDISC pilot project. There we replicated the entire CDISC pilot project using pharmaRTF. I really appreciate you stopping by the booth. I hope you enjoyed the demo of pharmaRTF. I hope to see you around the conference, but if I don't, I've listed 3 different ways to get a hold of me above. You can see my email, my LinkedIn, and I'm also on the R and Pharma Slack page if you'd like to send me a chat message there, and I'm looking forward to getting in touch.